Your mother needs immediate psychiatric intervention, Dr. Pauleo Kim said, his voice steady as a metronome. I sat in his office, bewildered. My son Jamias stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder. The electroshock therapy will help her regain clarity. I opened my mouth to protest. Jamias squeezed my shoulder harder. The pressure made me go silent. 3 weeks earlier, everything had been normal. I was 58 years old, running my own accounting firm, living independently in the house my late husband and I had purchased 32 years ago. My mind was sharp. My finances were secure. My life was mine. Then Jamias started visiting more frequently. He'd always been close to me, my only child, the product of a marriage that lasted 41 years before cancer took my husband, Marcus. After Marcus died, Jamias had been attentive, checking on me, bringing groceries, making sure I wasn't drowning in grief. It felt natural. It felt like love. But somewhere in the last 6 months, something shifted. The visits became more intrusive. He'd arrive unannounced. He'd start small conversations about my finances. Mom, you should let me help manage your accounts. You're working too hard. I'd laugh it off. I'd been managing my own money for decades. Then came the questions about my mental state. Are you sleeping okay? You seem distracted. Have you been feeling depressed? Maybe you should talk to someone professionally. I wasn't depressed. I was fine. I told him so, repeatedly. But he kept pushing. He started researching psychiatrists. He mentioned names casually. Dr. Kim is excellent, very thorough. He specializes in cases like yours. Cases like mine? There was nothing wrong with me. One afternoon, Jamias arrived with a folder. I've already scheduled your first appointment, he said, setting it on my kitchen counter. Dr. Kim can see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I felt something cold slide down my spine. Not fear exactly. Confusion. Why was he doing this? I don't need a psychiatrist, I said clearly. Mom. His voice took on that patient tone, the one he used when he thought I wasn't understanding something simple. You've been acting strange, forgetting things, getting confused. It's better to get ahead of this now, while you're still lucid enough to recognize the problem. I hadn't been forgetting things. I hadn't been confused. But I went to the appointment anyway, if only to prove to Jamias that there was nothing wrong with me. Dr. Pauleo Kim's office was on the 14th floor of a medical building downtown. The waiting room smelled like artificial lavender and desperation. I sat in a beige chair that was too soft, holding a clipboard with questions I didn't want to answer. Jamias sat beside me, reading something on his phone, occasionally glancing at me with that expression of concern that was starting to feel like something else entirely. The appointment itself was surreal. Dr. Kim asked me standard questions. How was my sleep, my appetite, my mood? Had I experienced any trauma recently? I answered everything honestly. I was fine. Better than fine. I was managing my grief well. My business was thriving. I had friends, hobbies, a full life. Dr. Kim wrote notes on a yellow legal pad, his pen moving steadily across the paper. He never looked up at me while I spoke. When he finally did, his expression was neutral, professional, the kind of face that had been trained to show nothing. I'd like to see you weekly, he said. I want to monitor your mental state more closely. Why? I asked. There's nothing wrong with me. That's something we can explore together, he replied. I left that office feeling like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Jamias walked beside me, his hand occasionally touching my elbow, guiding me like I was fragile. The gesture that might have once felt protective now felt controlling. Over the next month, I attended 4 sessions with Dr. Kim. each one felt more like a performance than therapy. He'd ask leading questions. Have you felt paranoid lately? Do you trust the people around you? Have you had any thoughts of harming yourself? The questions were designed to elicit yes answers, and when I said no to all of them, he'd write something down with a frown, as if my denial was itself a symptom. Meanwhile, Jamias was becoming more present in my life. He started coming to my office, sitting in on client meetings, asking questions about my business operations. When I suggested gently that his presence might be affecting my professional credibility, he looked hurt. I'm just trying to help, Mom. You're clearly struggling. I wasn't struggling, but I was becoming increasingly aware that I was being positioned as if I were. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. I was in my office, reviewing tax documents for a major client, when Jamias arrived with Dr. Kim. They didn't call ahead. They just appeared in my doorway, Dr. Kim carrying a leather briefcase, his expression grave. Zolaina, Dr. Kim said, using my first name in a way that felt invasive. Your son has expressed serious concerns about your judgment. He's worried you're making poor financial decisions that could jeopardize your future. I set down my pen slowly. My fingers didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. What are you talking about? Jamias stepped forward. Mom, I've been reviewing your accounts. You're spending erratically. You're making business decisions that don't make sense. Last week, you gave a client a discount for no reason. I gave them a discount because they've been loyal for 15 years and I wanted to reward that loyalty, I said. That's called good business practice. It's called poor judgment, Dr. Kim interjected. This kind of impulsive financial behavior can be a sign of early-onset cognitive decline. Combined with your other symptoms? What other symptoms? I stood up. My chair rolled backward and hit the wall. I don't have symptoms. I'm fine. I'm more than fine. I'm thriving. That's exactly what concerns us, Dr. Kim said, and the way he said it, with such certainty, such professional authority, made my skin crawl. Grandiose thinking, inability to recognize decline, resistance to help. These are classic indicators of a developing condition. I looked at Jamias. Why are you doing this? His face crumpled slightly, as if I'd hurt him. Because I love you, Mom. Because I can't stand watching you deteriorate. I'm not deteriorating. You are, Dr. Kim said firmly. And I'm recommending immediate psychiatric evaluation for potential electroshock therapy. Your son has power of attorney for medical decisions, and he's authorized me to proceed. The words hit me like a physical blow. Power of attorney? When had that happened? I'd never signed anything giving Jamias power of attorney for medical decisions. I'd never signed anything at all. I didn't authorize that, I said. You did, Jamias said quietly. Remember, when Dad got sick, you asked me to help with his medical paperwork. You had me sign as your medical proxy. It's still valid. I did remember that. I'd been drowning in hospital paperwork during Marcus's final months, and Jamias had helped. But that was a temporary measure. That was for a specific crisis. That wasn't meant to be permanent. That wasn't meant to be used against me. This is illegal, I said. You can't force someone into electroshock therapy. Actually, Dr. Kim said, opening his briefcase and producing a stack of documents. We can. When a medical professional determines that a patient is a danger to themselves or others due to mental illness, we have the legal authority to pursue involuntary treatment. Your son has testified that you're a danger to yourself through poor financial judgment and impulsive behavior. That's sufficient grounds. I stared at the documents, the words blurred. Danger to myself? That's insane. That's exactly what someone experiencing this kind of condition would say, Dr. Kim replied. The room started to feel smaller. The walls seemed to be closing in. I could see it now, the entire structure of what they'd built. Every appointment with Dr. Kim. Every question designed to sound like symptoms. Every note he'd written down, not to understand me, but to construct a narrative. And Jamius, my son, my only child, standing there with an expression of false concern while systematically dismantling my life. I want a second opinion, I said. Of course, Dr. Kim said. I'm recommending you see Dr. Leowen Ferguson at Riverside Psychiatric Hospital. He specializes in your particular condition. I've already contacted him, and he's agreed to evaluate you. Jamias will drive you there tomorrow morning. And if I refuse? Then I'll have you involuntarily committed, Dr. Kim said simply. Your son will sign the paperwork, and you'll be transported by ambulance to the hospital. The outcome will be the same, but it will be more traumatic. I'd advise cooperation. I looked at Jamias. I waited for him to say something, to laugh, to say this was all some kind of terrible joke, to tell me he was testing me, or that he'd changed his mind, or that he'd realized how insane this all was. He didn't. He just looked at me with those eyes that had once been so full of love, now full of something else entirely. Something calculating, something cold. Why? I asked him. He didn't answer. That night, alone in my house, I did something I should have done weeks ago. I called a lawyer. Mikhail Pratt was a family law attorney I'd done accounting work for over the years. When I explained the situation to him over the phone, there was a long silence on the other end. Zolina, he said carefully, what you're describing is elder abuse. Specifically, it sounds like financial exploitation and potential involuntary commitment fraud. Do you have documentation of when you signed the power of attorney? Not with me, I said. But I know I did it. It was about 5 years ago, when Marcus was in the hospital. That's the problem, Mikhail said. A power of attorney from 5 years ago, specifically for medical decisions during a specific crisis, shouldn't still be valid. But if it's written broadly enough, it could be. We need to see the actual document. And we need to act fast. If they commit you tomorrow, it becomes exponentially harder to fight back. What do I do? First, I'm going to file an emergency restraining order to prevent involuntary commitment. Second, I'm going to request an independent psychiatric evaluation from a neutral party. Third, we're going to revoke that power of attorney immediately. But Zolina, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Is there any chance they're right? Is there any chance you're experiencing some kind of mental health crisis and you're not aware of it? I thought about that question carefully. I thought about whether I could trust my own mind, my own perception of reality. That was the genius of what they were doing. By the time you started questioning your own sanity, you were already halfway to believing them. No, I said. I'm not experiencing a crisis. My son is trying to gain control of my money and my life, and he's using a psychiatrist to make it look legitimate. Okay, Mikhail said. Then we fight. Don't go to that hospital tomorrow. Come to my office at 8 in the morning. Bring any documents you have regarding your finances, your power of attorney, anything related to your relationship with your son. And Zolina? Don't tell anyone where you're going. Not your son. Not Dr. Kim. No one. I hung up the phone and sat in the darkness of my living room. The house that Marcus and I had built together. The house that was supposed to be my refuge. The house that my son was trying to take from me. I packed a bag with documents. I called in sick to my office. And I did something I'd never done before in my entire life. I disappeared. The next morning, I didn't answer when Jamias called. I didn't answer when he came to my house and knocked on the door. I was already in Mikhail's office, spreading documents across his conference table, watching his expression shift from concern to anger as he reviewed what I'd accumulated. "This is bad," he said finally. "This is really bad. Look at this." He pointed to a bank statement. "Your son has been making unauthorized withdrawals from your accounts. $30,000 over the past 4 months. "What?" I grabbed the statement. The withdrawals were there, plain as day. Cash withdrawals made at ATMs across the city. "How is that possible? Those accounts require my signature." "Not if he's on them as a joint account holder," Mikhail said. "Which he is. Look at the signature card. When did you add him to these accounts?" I stared at the document. My signature was there, authorizing Jamias as a joint account holder. Except I didn't remember signing it. I didn't remember doing that at all. "I didn't," I said. "I didn't sign that." Mikhail's jaw tightened. "Then he forged your signature, which is fraud, which is a felony. Zolina, your son isn't trying to get you committed because he thinks you're mentally ill. He's trying to get you committed so you can't testify against him when he steals your money." The realization hit me like a wave. All of it. Every appointment with Dr. Kim. Every question about my mental state. Every suggestion that I was declining. It was all designed to construct a narrative that would make it impossible for anyone to believe me if I accused Jamias of theft. Who would believe a woman the court had deemed mentally incompetent? "What do I do?" I asked. "We file a police report," Mikhail said. "We file it today, and we get you a restraining order against both your son and Dr. Kim, and we get you that independent psychiatric evaluation so we have documentation that you're mentally sound." The police report took 3 hours. The detective, a woman named Caroline Fernandez with sharp eyes and sharper intuition, listened to my story without interrupting. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. "This is a classic elder abuse scenario," she said. "The isolation, the gaslighting, the financial exploitation, the attempt to involuntarily commit you. We see it more often than you'd think. Usually it takes years for families to catch on. You're lucky you figured it out." "I don't feel lucky," I said. "You will," Detective Fernandez replied. "When this is over, you'll be very glad you trusted your instincts." The independent psychiatric evaluation was scheduled for the following week. I spent those days in a state of suspended animation, staying at a hotel, communicating with Mikhail, gathering more evidence. Every bank statement, every email from Jamias, every note from Dr. Kim, building a case against my own son. The psychiatrist Mikhail hired was Dr. Hewen Cooper, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every manipulation tactic in the book. She spent 2 hours with me, asking questions that were nothing like Dr. Kim's questions. She asked about my childhood, my career, my accomplishments, my relationships, my values. She asked me to solve complex math problems. She asked me to recall details from conversations I'd had weeks ago. She asked me about current events. She asked me to describe my goals for the future. When she finished, she wrote a report that stated unequivocally that I was mentally sound, cognitively intact, and experiencing no signs of mental illness or cognitive decline. The report further noted that the pattern of appointments with Dr. Kim, combined with the specific nature of the questions asked and the conclusions drawn, suggested a possible case of medical fraud and elder abuse. Armed with that report, Mikhail filed a lawsuit. The lawsuit accused Jamias of elder abuse, financial exploitation, fraud, and forgery, It accused Dr. Paul-Leo Kim of participating in a scheme to involuntarily commit a mentally sound individual for financial gain. It sought to revoke Jamias's power of attorney, to freeze his access to my accounts, and to recover all stolen funds with interest and penalties. Jamias's response came through his own lawyer. He denied everything. He claimed I was experiencing a mental health crisis and was now paranoid and delusional. He claimed that Dr. Kim was a legitimate medical professional and that his recommendations were sound. He claimed that the money he'd withdrawn from my accounts was for household expenses and family support that he was entitled to as my son. The case went to court. The courtroom was cold and sterile, all wood paneling and fluorescent lights. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Mikhail. Jamias sat across from me with his lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Landon Kim, who looked like he'd been trained to win at any cost. Dr. Paul-Leo Kim sat in the gallery, his expression neutral and professional. The judge, an older woman named Rosalyn Vasquez, reviewed the documents with a frown that deepened with each page she turned. "Mr. Herrera," she said, addressing Jamias directly, "can you explain these bank withdrawals?" "I was helping my mother with expenses," Jamias said smoothly. "She was becoming forgetful, and I was managing her finances to protect her." "Without her knowledge or consent?" the judge asked. "With her implicit consent," Jamias replied. "She authorized me as a joint account holder." "According to the defendant's own documents, your mother has no memory of authorizing this," the judge said, "and according to the forensic analysis of her signature card, it appears to be forged. Is that correct?" Jamias's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client disputes the forensic analysis. Signatures change over time. It's entirely possible." "It's also possible," the judge interrupted, "that your client is committing fraud." Dr. Cooper's psychiatric evaluation contradicts Dr. Kim's assessment entirely. In fact, Dr. Cooper notes that the pattern of appointments with Dr. Kim suggests a deliberate attempt to construct a narrative of mental illness where none exists. "Dr. Kim, would you like to respond?" Dr. Paul-Leo Kim stood. His composure was perfect. His voice was steady. "Your Honor, I stand by my professional assessment. Mrs. Herrera presents with clear signs that you documented over a series of appointments specifically designed to elicit symptoms," the judge said coldly. "I've reviewed your notes. Every question is leading. Every conclusion is predetermined. You weren't evaluating Mrs. Herrera. You were building a case against her." The courtroom was silent. "I'm going to rule," Judge Rosalyn Vasquez said, "that the power of attorney granted by Mrs. Herrera to her son is hereby revoked. I'm ordering the immediate freezing of all joint accounts. I'm ordering the defendant to repay all stolen funds, with interest and penalties, within 30 days. I'm referring both Dr. Paul-Leo Kim and Mr. Jamias Herrera to the district attorney for potential criminal charges. And I'm issuing a permanent restraining order preventing Mr. Herrera from contacting his mother or accessing her property." The gavel came down like a gunshot. Jamias didn't look at me as he left the courtroom. He just gathered his papers and walked out, his lawyer beside him, both of them moving with the careful precision of people who knew they'd been caught. Dr. Paul-Leo Kim followed them, and I saw something flicker across his face as he passed me. Not shame, not remorse. Just a flash of calculation, as if he was already thinking about how to rebuild his reputation after this. The criminal charges came 3 weeks later. Jamias was charged with elder abuse, financial exploitation, and forgery. Dr. Paul-Leo Kim was charged with fraud and conspiracy. Both cases were referred to the district attorney's office. But I didn't wait for the criminal trials. I didn't need to. I had what I needed: vindication, restoration, and most importantly, my life back. The recovery process was harder than I expected. It wasn't just about getting my money back or winning the lawsuit. It was about rebuilding trust in my own judgment. For months, I'd questioned my own mind. I'd wondered if I was crazy. I doubted my own perception of reality. That damage didn't disappear just because a judge said I was right. I started seeing a therapist, a real one this time, not someone trying to construct a narrative against me. Her name was Elena Warren, and she specialized in trauma and elder abuse. In our sessions, I processed what had happened. How my son had used my love for him as a weapon. How he'd manipulated the system designed to protect vulnerable people. How he'd weaponized mental health care itself, turning a tool meant to help into a tool meant to control. The worst part, I told Elena in one session, is that I still love him. Some part of me still wants to believe that he didn't mean it, that he was confused or desperate or something, but he wasn't. He was calculating. Every step was deliberate. That's the nature of this kind of betrayal, Elena said gently. It's not a sudden explosion of anger. It's a slow, methodical dismantling of trust. And the person you loved is still the person you loved. They're just also someone capable of hurting you. Both things are true. I rebuilt my business. My clients had stood by me during the trial, and their loyalty meant everything. I hired a new bookkeeper to handle my accounts, someone I trusted completely. I changed all my passwords. I reviewed every financial document. I became hypervigilant about my money, my property, my autonomy. Some might call it paranoia. I called it self-protection. I also cut off contact with Jamias completely. When he tried to call, I didn't answer. When he tried to send messages, I didn't read them. When he showed up at my office 6 months after the trial ended, I had security escort him out. The restraining order was clear. He couldn't contact me, and I was going to enforce it. A year after the trial, I received a letter from the district attorney's office. Jamias had taken a plea deal. He'd pleaded guilty to elder abuse and financial exploitation. He'd agreed to repay all stolen funds with interest. He'd agreed to 5 years of probation and mandatory counseling. In exchange, the forgery charges had been dropped. Dr. Paleo Kim had done the same. He'd lost his medical license. He'd been fined. He'd agreed to a settlement that included restitution to me for emotional distress and legal fees. I read the letter and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no closure. Just a hollow sense that the system had done what it was supposed to do, but that it had taken everything I had to make it happen. 2 years after the trial, I was sitting in my office on a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang. It was a woman named Haya Romero. She introduced herself as the daughter of someone my son had tried to do the same thing to. "I found your case online," she said. "I'm trying to help my mother. She's in the same situation. My brother convinced a psychiatrist that she needs electroshock therapy. He has power of attorney." She's scheduled to be admitted to a hospital in 2 weeks. I listened to her story. It was mine. Different details, same pattern. The slow erosion of independence, the gaslighting, the psychiatrist with leading questions, the power of attorney weaponized. "You need to call a lawyer immediately," I told her. "And you need to get an independent psychiatric evaluation, and you need to file a police report." "How did you get out?" she asked. "I trusted my instincts," I said. "Even when everyone was telling me I was crazy, some part of me knew I wasn't, and I acted on that. I didn't wait. I didn't hope it would resolve itself. I fought." I gave her the names of the professionals who had helped me. I gave her advice based on what I'd learned. I told her she could call me if she needed to talk to someone who understood what she was going through. 3 months later, she called to tell me that her mother had won her case too. Today, 5 years after that courtroom victory, I run my business from the same office I've had for 20 years. I'm 63 years old. I have friends, hobbies, a full life. I sleep without fear. I make my own decisions about my money, my property, my medical care, my future. I haven't heard from Jamias in 4 years. I don't know where he is or what he's doing. I don't want to know. That part of my life is closed, locked away, filed under lessons learned. But I think about him sometimes. I think about the moment in the courtroom when he wouldn't look at me. I think about how he must have felt when the judge ruled against him. I think about whether he's learned anything or whether he's still the same person, just more careful about who he targets next. I don't forgive him. I don't think I ever will. Forgiveness would require believing that he regrets what he did, and I don't think he does. I think he regrets getting caught. I think he regrets that I was smart enough and stubborn enough to fight back. But I don't think he regrets trying to steal my life. What I've learned is this: the people we love are capable of betraying us in ways we can't imagine. The systems designed to protect us can be weaponized against us. And the only defense against that is to trust yourself, to act decisively, and to never, ever assume that someone's love for you means they won't hurt you. I tell this story because there are people out there right now, in situations like mine, doubting their own minds, wondering if they're crazy, letting someone else write the narrative of their lives. If you're one of those people, I want you to know this: trust yourself. Your instincts are there for a reason, and if something feels wrong, it probably is. If you're experiencing elder abuse or financial exploitation, reach out to someone you trust. Call a lawyer, get a second opinion, document everything, and fight back, because your life is yours. And no one, not your family, not a psychiatrist, not anyone, gets to take it from you.